I am not providing any guarantees on it. So it can have bugs, it can have security issues, but it's my code, right? I'm not putting it out there for legal use or production use cases. If you want it in production, you are free, you are more than free to copy it, modify it according to your business needs, and put it out in production. So it's essentially a set of rights that you give to people. The antithesis of open source would be closed source. So it's services like Google Meet, um, then there's Google Docs, Google Sheets. All of these are various softwares which you cannot access the source code to. You cannot go and read the way a particular function is implemented in that a large application, right? So this is called closed source. So the opposite of that would be open source. You can go and read any piece of line you want. You can understand how things work underneath the hood. And maybe if you find a bug in your favorite application, you can just go ahead and fix it. So that's the power of open source. It's like open science. You have a lot of freedom, you get to understand how things work underneath the hood, and you get to implement things on your own. Now, you might be thinking, okay, why is that important, right? How, as a business, how will I make money if my code is open source? Well, the thing is, there's a particular phrase called reinventing the wheel. You never want to reinvent the wheel more than once. So let's say I'm writing, I don't know, a calculator app. I want to be able to handle complex mathematical notations and break it down into a final answer, right? And you must have studied in your data structure course that there's this thing called reverse Polish notation for mathematical equations. So if you had to write a parser for that every single time you wanted to write a calculator app, it would be a little unintuitive, right? So what if there existed a library that already implemented it for you? And you can call the library and simply pass in your arithmetic expression and get back a proper answer. Well, then you didn't need to rewrite an already solved problem. So the goal is, well, we have a very complex set of problems. How can we make it such that it can be reused across multiple domains? So if I make the code open source, anyone can adapt it to their particular use cases. So this is why open source is important. It not just helps us reduce code redundancy and like repetition, but also helps us move faster in a business setting. It also helps us in open innovation, right? So let's say I work for Intel and I write some CPU code, and that some engineer from NVIDIA comes along, and in his day job, maybe he finds this very particular, a nice algorithm that makes matrix multiplications faster. Well, now he can come into Intel's open source code and then say, okay, this part can be better, and then submits a patch, and it gets reviewed by Intel people, and they say, okay, I like it, this is good, and then they merge it. So, what did you notice? This collaborative effort from multiple industries can improve the software you use at the end of the day. So, these are just some of the minor reasons why open source is important, but albeit like significant nonetheless. And how does open source work, right? So, if I'm saying, okay, let's say I'm from Intel and some engineer from NVIDIA can come and contribute code to my repository. How do I manage it? Because it's not just NVIDIA, it may be AMD, it might be Dell, Lenovo, so many companies are out there. In fact, it can be individuals as well, like you and me. We can go to Intel and say, okay, this code can be better, this bug can be fixed. So, how do we orchestrate these large scale collaborative efforts where we don't know who the next person is, right? In a business setting or in a corporate setting, you know who your coworker is. You can very easily check the type of code that is provided, the quality of code, and the standards that it follows. So how do we ensure that in such a large scale where we cannot enforce it on everyone? And that will be a topic of discussion. All right. So now that I mentioned what open source is, the next question is what's in it for you, right? Why write code that everyone can use when you can make money off of it? Well, some of the reasons I already explained: a collaborative effort. If your application is fairly large, you can get help from others, right? So let's say I am writing a Spotify clone and I write the music streaming service, but now I need a recommendation system. So if you listen to, let's say, I don't know, Metallica or The Weekend, we want more music like that coming into your feed. But I don't know how to write a recommendation system. Well, then anyone who's using my app can see, oh, it's open source. It lacks a recommendation system. I can just go write one, right? So by making something open source, you get more eyes on your project, and you get free feature developments. And who doesn't want that? As a result of people getting to see your code, actually you have a couple effects that come out of this. So one of them is networking. So to give an example, I write a software called Wayshot. It is a low-level screen capture library. So like right now, I'm streaming to you guys over the internet with something called WebRTC, and something is taking the image from my GPU or my monitor and streaming it over the internet onto your screen, right? So that is the software I write. And this particular engineer from Meta actually wanted to contribute to my repo and fix a particular bug that he was facing, which he really wanted on his system to be corrected. So he sent me like a couple pull requests or changes that fixed the thing, and I merged them. And eventually, what happened was that he saw the type of code I wrote, the quality of code I wrote, and he was satisfied with it. And as a result, I got, I believe, 6 referrals at Meta. So this is a huge thing because unlike standard interviews where you're having to do like meaningless questions to an interviewer who doesn't even know you, you are speaking to an engineer who knows you and he's watching your code in front of you. There's nothing to hide. Your skill speaks for itself, and if he likes you or he or she likes you, they will give you a referral, and you can ask for it politely. So a lot of networking is built through open source. In fact, all the referrals I've gotten to date are through open source. There are also engineers I've never met in person but met through code. So let your code speak for yourself. Let your work shine before you. So just like networking, also career growth, it's free experience, right? If you're creating a Spotify clone and putting it out there on the internet, or maybe deploying it as a service for payment, well, then it's free experience. It's free growth. You can show it on your resume. You can maybe get some recruiters calling you. So yeah. Also, you get to make an impact on the world. Maybe your application right now is small, but in the future, who knows? Maybe you'll be contributing to things like open source MRI machines. I recently visited the Google California office, and I met some people who made their own MRI machines that are almost 20 times cheaper than the corporate closed source versions out there. This is because they don't have a business incentive to make things expensive, but rather work on innovative science that is cheap and more accessible to lesser developed nations. So, although you might be contributing to something not very big at the moment, you can genuinely make an impact on the world with open source. So, the next question, right? How do you start? And I don't know how to answer that. So, I'll tell you how did I start out, and maybe you can try to follow a similar pattern, see if it works for you or not. Again, advice it cannot be personalized to everyone, so I'll try to give a generalized one which worked for me, and you can try that out for yourself. So these 5 points are what I believe worked out the best for me and helped me break into this industry. And I'll just quickly list them out for you guys. So, spontaneous sprints of enjoyment. I would look at a piece of code, or rather, for some context, I started using Linux from around 10th grade. And for people who don't know, Linux is completely open source. You can read the entire source code, as in how your hard drives are handled, how your keyboard is handled, how your mouse works. You can read everything. And as a result, the entire ecosystem of Linux is built around open source applications. So you can see how your, I don't know, how your web browser works. You can just read the source code if you want. So as a result, whenever I used to use a tool and I found a bug in it, I would find these sprints of enjoyment to go and see, has anyone reported this bug? And if no one reported it, I would go and report it to the respective channels and try to solve it. And I genuinely enjoyed that because it was part of my system. Fixing that bug would make my life easier. So approach this problem as something you enjoy. If you look at open source as something, oh, this will get me a job, you will not find it fun. Okay, don't mix your hobby and your career. Try to make this a fun hobby that you can build on, which is adjacent to your career, but not your career. I would highly suggest that. I also started as a Linux tinkerer, as I just said, play around with open source software. Linux is a huge community of open source developers and very skilled ones at that. So, getting into the Linux community early on will help you build good practices and learn how to write open source software. Even if you don't know now, you will learn on the way. Also, I was super jealous of some awesome engineers that I interacted with daily. So there's this one particular French engineer called Simon Sir, uh, and so if you use this technology called Wayland, everything on your system is basically written by him. So whenever I used to install something, the copyright notice would come. Okay, copyright 2022, Simon Sir. I just felt so jealous. Why is my entire system branded with Simon Sir? Why can't it have my own name? So I started out with this adventure of rewriting everything I could. So it would start out with my GPU drivers. I tried to modify my own kernel. I tried to modify uh, the way pixels are drawn to my screenshot tool, the hotkey daemon. I tried to rewrite everything I could. And as a result, I started this small organization called Wakerate, where we rewrite standard tools into very efficient, highly optimized solutions in Rust. And that eventually got me a position at Google Summer of Code as an organization admin and mentor. And now I teach students for a living. So that's a bit of fun. Also, a very insightful advice that I can give everyone here is rewrite things. It's fine if it's a solved problem. If you, let's say you see a very cool algorithm online that does pathfinding. So given a particular maze, from one end, it will walk to the other and find the optimal path. This is a very popular, very common solved problem. But I want you to approach it in a different way. Take a particular piece of code that solves this already, let's say it's in C, and rewrite it in your favorite language. The thing is, when you are looking at, let's say you look at a YouTube tutorial which is written in C and you try to rewrite it in C, but then you essentially copy. Your brain has no cognitive function in this loop. Whereas if the, let's say, tutorial or blog post is in C and you rewrite it in Python or Rust, well, now you need to actually understand what the line is doing, convert it in your mind to a different domain, and then spit it out. So you have an intuitive understanding. And not always does it need to be a blog post or a YouTube tutorial. What I really enjoyed was, let's say you are using the GCC compiler. I would just see how GCC is run. So GCC and then a file name, and then would spit out a dot out, right? So I would recreate that same interface in a different programming language without looking at the source code. So rewriting things by yourself gives you a lot of intuition. So when you read other people's code, you'll know, okay, I see why they did this. I see why they use this approach. So rewriting things is not a bad decision all the time. I would highly suggest it. It's not for everyone, but you can try it out. Also, apart from just a different language, you can choose a different underlying protocol as well. So it seems there's some like scaling issues here. But the next point of discussion is building intuition for open source projects. So let's say you want to contribute to a community, and how do you start out? How do you build the intuition of where to search for bugs, where to search for features you can insert, etc. So for that, I also have a couple points that can help you. Number one is it's okay to ask. It's fine if you don't know. There are maintainers who have been working on these code bases for years or maybe a couple months, and you can ask them. They'll probably point you to a very useful direction which you can look at and get a summary which will help you very fast. So, your first thing to do is ask. It's okay. Don't feel ashamed. We are all beginners, and someday in the future, you will be on the other end answering the questions. The second point, nothing beats experience. When you are working on an open source project, or rather any corporate project as well, you will usually have a code base that's like 200,000 lines of code or 300,000 lines of code. And you can't afford to read every single line. You need to have experience and intuition. Just how if I give you a mathematics problem, you'll probably within the first 5 seconds think about which approaches can solve it the best. So if I give you an irregular shape and ask you to find the area underneath it, your mind will immediately go to calculus, particularly integral calculus. Similarly, nothing beats experience. That intuition you have that tells you it's calculus is something you'll need in code as well. You cannot read all 300,000 lines of code and expect to remember all of it. And that's fine. That's human of you. It's nothing wrong or wrong of you to say. So now how do we build this experience or this intuition, right? Reverse engineering is a way to do that. Now, what is reverse engineering? Let's say I give you a black box. This black box is something you cannot look inside of. So let's say in the black box, I give an apple and there's an output section. And in the output, I get nothing but the seeds of the apple and the core of the apple. Well, by looking at this system, I can assume that there is something inside the box that's eating the apple and then spitting out the core. So what you just did is you saw a particular set of inputs, a particular set of outputs, and estimated what the function inside is doing. And that is exactly what reverse engineering is. We want to guess or find the approximate pattern or position of a particular code we want. Now that we know how to build this intuition, which is reverse engineering, how do we learn reverse engineering, right? That's the next question. And I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, just practice. There's nothing better you can do. And it comes back in loop with the previous point, which is it's okay to ask. If you ask a maintainer, they'll tell you where to look. And then you can look at that particular code base and realize that, okay, I get why they are pointing me to this point. And then this feedback loop will help you understand reverse engineering. What I really like to do myself is, let's say if there is a UI application like a website and there's a small button, let's say sign up. So the sign up button says the text sign up, right? So I can just search in the repository of the code where the term sign up comes up, and then I'll read the functions which have the term sign up in it. Because usually functions are very well named, so it should be appropriate that the button which performs the sign up operation has a function that has sign up in its name. So if you search for strings or special keywords smartly, you will usually find where you need to look very fast. And that really helped me. So let's say there's a sign up button and I need to add a logout functionality right beside it. So what I'll do is I'll search the code for the sign up section and I'll copy it and I'll just paste it beside. And as soon as I can confirm that, yes, the logout button is reflecting on my UI, then I can go ahead and try some business logic. So the goal is you don't need to write a perfect solution. We can't write a perfect solution because you don't know all 300,000 lines of code. Just try to approximate it. Look for patterns, try to reverse engineer the best as you can, and ask someone experienced along the way. I have done it thousands of times. In fact, a fun story that I can share now is when I was in my 12th grade, I used to speak to this engineer who I thought was just an open source maintainer. And I used to bother them day and night, asking them a bunch of questions, trying to understand the code base. And many years later, I found out they are like senior software engineer at Red Hat. And I used to bother them day and night with my questions, whereas they wouldn't be really interested to answer them. But since my questions were nice, they were more invested in my conversation. So make your questions worthwhile. Don't make it something that you can easily search up, right? Uh, we want to see that you have competence such that if I provide you with enough of a hint, you can solve it yourself. We don't want to handhold you. That's the last thing that an open source maintainer wants to do. And again, as I said, the practice should be fulfilling, as in you enjoy the process and not just the sake to land a job. By the way, I am looking at the chat. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to interrupt me and put it in there. I'll just wait 2 seconds for any questions if there are any, and then I'll move on. Okay, I see no questions as of now. All right. Um, Now that we have discussed what is open source, why it's important for you, and how can you benefit from it, let's also discuss how to do it, right? What's the most important tool for the job? Uh, I would suggest having a Unix-based environment, so that would be Mac OS, Linux, but Windows is also fine. Um, it will be a little harder for you to contribute on Windows, but I'm not saying it's impossible. Uh, what did you mean by different protocol instead of a different language? Okay. Uh, so let's say you have a GPU. The GPU talks to the monitor when you're playing games, right? We need to draw characters, do ray tracing, like how the light is coming in, bouncing off of characters, and going to the camera. So there are multiple ways of doing this. There are multiple APIs that you can use for this. A couple of them, I'll list them out right now. You must have heard of them. One is DirectX. This is what Windows uses. There's OpenGL, which is the open source implementation of DirectX. This is what Linux uses. Then there's Metal, which is what macOS uses. So let's say there's a game engine that's written in DirectX. You can try to replicate it in OpenGL. OpenGL is a totally different API, but it gives you the same functionalities as that of DirectX. To give an example that's simple, let's say you have a ball and you want to hit it somewhere far. Well, you can do it with a cricket bat and you can do it with a tennis racket. The difference is in the tool that you're using, but the outcome is the same. So that's what I mean by using a different protocol. You can use a different technology that's under the. Can you repeat what is reverse engineering once again? So reverse engineering is basically when, let's say you have a graphical application on your phone, and there's a particular bug on a button. So let's say it's a payment button. So to search where the payment code is bugging out, what you'll usually do is search for related queries or keywords. It's like Googling, but inside of a code base. So instead of searching on the internet, you're searching within your local code base for popular keywords which may match that particular task. So if it's, let's say your payment is not processing properly, so you'll search for keywords like payment, authorization, and then once you find the particular candidate positions where the bug may be present, then you go ahead and do a like a proper read through of those functions and see, okay, maybe this is where my error is, and then you attach a debugger, see, like validate your beliefs, and then continue the loop. That's what reverse engineering is. Any good resources to get familiar with Linux? Okay, I'll get to this later because it's a little off topic. I'll ask another round of questions at the end of the session, and you can repeat the question. All right. So, continuing off where we were, what are the important tools for getting started in open source? You need something called a version control system. And I'll explain quickly what that is. But before I do, there are two kinds. One is Git and Mercurial. Mercurial is used entirely at Meta, developed by Meta. But the most popular kind that you'll get to use everywhere, including like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, is Git. So that is the topic I chose to explain today, so that most companies, like you can benefit from most companies out there. And don't worry, Mercurial is just the same as Git. It's just you change the command name slightly and you got it. And I'll also be explaining what GitHub is. So I'll be quickly switching to a drawing environment. Mm, just bear with me for a second. Okay. Let me see. One second, my stylus is not working properly. Yeah, Soumya, I'll get to your question at the end if that's all right. We're running a little low on time. We still have a demonstration left. Okay, can you see my ink on the screen when I'm drawing stuff? Can I maybe get a couple yeses in the chat in case? All right, cool. Okay. So we just discussed the tools we need, right? Git and Git. Apologies for my terrible handwriting. We need Git and GitHub. So let's understand what these two technologies are and how they are different from each other. And then we'll go into how they work, how they fit into the ecosystem, and so on. So before I explain what they are, let me give an analogy of what the relationship between Git and GitHub is like. So you guys have used spreadsheets, right? So they have a table, they have columns and rows. So let me just draw that with my terrible handwriting once again. So this is spreadsheet software. And there are two versions of a spreadsheet software. One is MS Excel. So you have MS Excel. And this is like a local version of a software that you can use, hosted on your computer locally. And then there's Google Sheets, right? This is also a popular one, Google Sheets. So what's the difference between these two? Google Sheets is a hosted service of the same thing. It's just another spreadsheet software with some added functionality like cloud backup, automatic refreshes, automatic saving. Whereas MS Excel is just the same thing, but locally on your computer. So the software, the basic software is the same. It's a spreadsheet software, but the deployment of them are different. One is locally on your machine, which is MS Excel, and the second is on a cloud-based service, which is Google Sheets. Does that make sense to everyone? Uh, I don't think there's a hand raise thing over here, but if someone can confirm in chat, that would be nice. Oh yeah, there's a raise hand. Can anyone confirm? Does that make sense? The analogy. Okay. All right. I'm glad to see that. So now that you get the analogy, it is same as in what applies to Git and GitHub. And now we'll be discussing what Git and GitHub is. So I'll wipe out all of this trash. 1 second. So I've taken some notes up here before the session. So I'll be referring to them maybe once or twice in the middle. Apologies for that. So let's say you are working at a big tech startup. Give me like name a big tech company. Can I please repeat that again? Don't worry, you will get it. That was just an analogy. We'll get to the main part now. Google. Okay, give something different. We are in a Google event. Okay, Riot. Okay, can we see some more interesting ones? Nvidia, Razorpay, Microsoft, Zomato. Okay, okay, interesting. I like Zomato because I'm a food enjoyer, so I'll take Zomato. So, what's the Zomato color? Let me see if I can change my colors. Okay. So let's say you work at Zomato as software engineer 1 or 2. So I'll draw out your dreams right now. No, senior software engineer. I'll make it better. Okay. Your annual compensation is some $150,000. Okay. So your life is set. You live in Bay Area, whatever. Now the problem comes. Half of your team is in India. Half of your team is in California, and you live in California. Okay. So let's say this is the Zomato code base. I'll just for this scenario, we'll assume that there's only one giant code base where the entire app lives. That's not how reality works. It's just an example. Okay. So you work at Zomato. And what's a feature you really want in Zomato? The Zomato guy, likho chat mein. Let me see. What's a feature you want? Or anyone, likho. Zomato में क्या चाहिए तुमको जो अभी नहीं है? More free food. Okay. So you need higher discount ratios, no tax. Okay, you can't do that. That would be illegal. Okay, you want higher discount ratios, higher coupon count. So it's a lottery system as far as I know that comes in. So let's say you just want to increase the probability of the lottery, right? So let's say there's some function in here. Wait. So the function is lottery. So I'll just call that LOT. Okay. And there's some logic here, as in the current logic is okay, 10% of the time you'll get maybe this much discount. Okay. And you being that liquor mart, like, okay, you being that senior software engineer, you want to give everyone, okay, sabko free coupons in hai. So the code lives in a particular central repository that's controlled by Zomato, right? You don't want कि Zomato का पूरा code base किसी का personal laptop पे रहे. That is a nightmare. Okay, so uh, Avni, we'll get to these questions later on. I'll just wrap up with the session first. So you don't want the code base of the full app to live on someone's laptop or someone's personal computer. We want it to live in a secure cloud-based system where if we have any downtime, I'm sorry, but if we have any downtime, so let's say my code was hosted on AWS and AWS crashes tomorrow or sets on fire, I don't want my code to be gone, right? That's the millions of dollars of effort. So we want it to be in a distributed cloud system such that whenever one instance falls down, maybe the rest will stay up and have redundancy of that. So I want my code to live in a secure cloud instance, which is automatically managed and maintained. Okay? So now you are one engineer and you need to edit that code base. So what will you do? Your first thing will be, let's say this is your machine. So I'll just do E1 for engineer one. And your task will be to clone the original code base, right? You can't directly edit the main source code because think about it. Let's say you have a database. Let's say you work at a bank and there's a database. If you directly edit transactions in the database, क्या होता है? Race conditions, right? One transaction comes earlier, transaction comes later, and while writing, कोई एक transaction miss हो जाएगा, extra money deduct हो जाएगा बैंक से, right? We don't want race conditions. We want proper transactions wherein एक बंदा क्लोन करेगा, एडिट्स करेगा, एडिट्स को फॉर्मलाइज करेगा एंड देन सेंड करेगा जोमेटो को. ठीक है. So usually this central cloud-based code-based hosting that I mentioned is done through GitHub. So GitHub automatically manages where your code lives, which servers it is on. So let's say agar GitHub ka Asian servers crash tomorrow, there's a hurricane or something, then the European or American servers will be able to support you in that case. So GitHub does this management for you. So engineer one will now clone the code from the GitHub cloud servers onto his own machines. So now he has a one-to-one copy of the exact code base. So now he makes some edits. He does the 100% off, all food free, जो मांगा था, ठीक है? And now he needs to send this off to the GitHub instance. So this is how it usually works. So he will send his changes as something called a patch. A patch is just a set of changes that you want to introduce in a code base. तो अगर एक लाइन था पहले a equals to b plus 10, my patch is कि मुझे 100% like offers in है, so a equals to b plus 100. Oh my god, one sec. Yeah, equals to b plus 100. So my patch will just be that I'm changing this character. I'm adding a zero at the end. So patch is just a difference between what was the old code and what is the new code. So he will send a patch. This is also called a pull request, PR, because I'm requesting GitHub to pull my changes. So pull request. And the PR will usually go through a review system. So other higher level engineers. So if you're a senior software engineer, some staff engineer will be here looking at your code. And once he approves the code, this will get merged into GitHub. तो अब क्या हुआ, तुम्हारे पास जो 100% वाला कोड था कि सब पूरा फ्री फूड, ठीक है, वो इधर चला गया. So what happened was that the changes you made were atomically tracked upstream at the main Zomato servers. So this is what Git does. It helps us collaborate in a way that our code does not make conflicts with others. And I'll show that like scenario as well. And it also helps us maintain a history. तो पहले मेरा था a equals to b plus 10 और मेरा ये पूरा कोड रिव्यू प्रोसेस के बाद बन गया a equals to b plus 100. But if you look at the like history of the repository, you'll be able to see this line first and you'll be able to see this line second. ठीक है, तो इसका फायदा क्या है, you'll be asking. अगर second line में कोई bug introduce हुआ है unknowingly, we can just strike out this change and go back to version 1. That is the power of Git. It is called a version control system, a VCS. And now you can see what versions we are controlling. Version in this sense is changes to code. So every time you change any part of the code, whether it be a comment or a semicolon, you are incrementing one amount of version. So in case you make any errors in your code, you can just go back one iteration or two iterations or how many iterations needed. So this is the power of Git. And GitHub is just an online hosted version of Git with some extra tools. So मैंने ये जो section तुमको दिखाया कि इधर कुछ senior engineers रहेंगे जो review करके accept करेंगे pull request. That is not a Git feature. Pull request is a Git feature, but this review UI जहाँ like we can chat with each other, that's something GitHub provides. So similarly, how Google Sheets provides you like automatic backup and stuff, which is extra from spreadsheet. Similarly, GitHub provides extra features from Git which improves developer experience, like being able to chat with your senior engineer. Like तुमने कुछ कोड भेजा, उसको पसंद नहीं आया, वो बोला कि अच्छा इसका स्टाइल खराब है, इसको ठीक करो. Well, then you can look at it, you can speak to him, you tell him, okay, I feel that I have done this correctly, and your opinions are trash because of this reason. Okay, so this is what GitHub provides, like a platform to communicate with other developers while doing normal Git related stuff. Okay, so we can strike out this section. Okay, and now let me give you an example of a more real world thing that can happen. So Git uses something called what was it? Trunk based development. तो trunk based development का मतलब क्या है? एक main master branch रहेगा. ठीक है, this is called master. I'll just write M. So the master branch is the like the source of all other branches. Now what is a branch? I'm getting to that. Let's say तुमको एक feature बनाना है, ठीक है? And this is increasing in time, by the way. Oh, what is this? Yeah, this graph is increasing in time. So at every unit of time, we are including some new features. So at say, let's say time t equals to 0, इधर कुछ feature था, and at time, let me change my color. At time t equals to let's say 3, some new feature F1 was introduced. So basically, what this line is, ki, throughout time, how is the code base changing? So I'll draw a cleaner version here. So you have a root or a master branch here, and the goal is whenever anyone wants to make a change to your repo, they will have to take a clone of master at any point in time. ठीक है? So let's say this is तुम्हारा वो 100% डिस्काउंट वाला ब्रांच, और ये मेन ब्रांच अब तक 10% पे चल रहा था, ठीक है? एंड देन आफ्टर you're done with your changes and you have verified कि तुम्हारा कोड सही है, now you are like ठीक है, मेरा कोड सही है, मुझे अब GitHub को सबमिट करना है क्योंकि अब ये एप्लीकेशन पे जा सकता है, it's ready for users. So now you make a pull request, right? PR बनेगा, and once the PR gets approved, it gets merged back into master. तो पहले इधर निकलता है, इधर डेवलपमेंट होता है, डेवलपमेंट होने के बाद मास्टर पे वापस चला जाता है. तो इसका फायदा क्यों है? Why should we go back into master? Because when we do further development, ठीक है, देखो मैंने एक फीचर इंप्लीमेंट किया, लेट्स से द फीचर इज 100% डिस्काउंट, और तुमने एक फीचर इंप्लीमेंट किया. मैं नहीं चाहता कि तुम्हारा कोड जो पुराने स्टेटमेंट था विल रीराइट माय चेंजेस, राइट? सो इफ आई मर्ज माय चेंजेस इनटू अ कॉमन बैंक, देन यू कैन सिंक्रोनाइज विथ मी एंड देन कंटिन्यू योर डेवलपमेंट. तो लेट्स से इधर 100% इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था, एंड एट द सेम टाइम समवन इन द इंडिया टीम वाज डूइंग अ 90% चेंज, राइट? तो अब तो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो गया. तेरा वाला पहले मर्ज हो चुका है, तेरा 100% जा चुका है, अब ये जब 90 मर्ज करने जाएगा, तेरा 100 रीराइट हो सकता है. सो गिट इज वेरी स्मार्ट, एज इन इट विल डिटेक्ट दिस कोलिजन and will raise something called a merge conflict. What a merge conflict is that a particular piece of code was edited in this branch B1 and B2 at the same time, but B1 was merged पहले. देखो B1 इधर merge हुआ, right? Let me use a different color for demonstration purposes. B1 इधर merge हुआ. Oh no. I just messed up big time. Okay, I'll just draw that back. Yeah. B1 got merged at somewhere during this point of time, whereas B2 got merged way later, right? तब तक the changes in B2 got invalidated by B1. So Git will like smartly inform us of this, and then we can work around. So my team can communicate with his team and we can tell him, oh, we already negotiated this 100% discount, and then we'll sort it out. So this is a manual conflict resolution. So that is essentially what Git and GitHub does. It is just a way for us to collaborate on code in very distributed settings. So let's say हमारा time zone अलग है, right? मैंने एक feature implement किया, तुमने उसको rewrite कर दिया गलती से. Git will warn you about that. Git will tell you, okay, someone recently changed this and you are trying to change it as well. Are you sure you're doing the right thing? So this is why we need Git. This is why we need Git in very large companies. This is how version control is managed. And for your information, the Linux kernel is the largest Git repo in existence. So that's it. Now we can go back to the slides. Sorry for my terrible handwriting. Let me stop sharing here. कुछ बाकी है क्या? I think I discussed all of this. Oh, right. I can give another example of why Git is needed. So have you ever had the like situation where you need to submit something to, let's say, I don't know, a platform or a professor? So एक PDF submit करना है, तो तुमने एक PDF बनाया, PDF1, ठीक है? सॉरी, आई बना दिया PDF1, एंड देन प्रोफेसर को तुमने सबमिट किया, उसने बोला कि ये गलत है, वो गलत है, इसको ठीक करो. तो बनता है PDF2. उसके बाद बनता है PDF फाइनल. उसके बाद बनता है PDF फाइनल. If anyone can agree with this, like they have experienced this, then please tell me, because this used to be me earlier on. Anyone, can I see some yeses in the chat? किसी के साथ ये हुआ है? फिर आएगा PDF फाइनल, right? So what you are doing right now, you are doing a version control system, but with a very uncontrolled or chaotic system. पहले 1 बन रहा है, पहले 2 बन रहा है, फिर उसके बाद फाइनल, फिर फाइनल सच्ची में फाइनल, ठीक है? तो Git can help you with this. You can put your PDF onto Git and then just make changes incrementally. तुमको दिखेगा सिर्फ एक फाइल, but anytime you want to go back to, let's say, PDF final, क्योंकि उधर कुछ था जो तुमने हटा दिया गलती से, लेकिन उसको भी वापस चाहिए, तो now you can go to Git and you can tell Git, अच्छा ये दो last जो changes था ना, इसको हटा दो, I don't care, and Git will remove them, and then you can go back to the previous version and access that. And it's sort of like time time में तुम आगे पीछे जा रहे हो, so you came back like 2 commits back, right? You came to this checkpoint. You can again go forward in time and go to PDF final जो भी हो, ठीक है? So this is why Git is needed. I hope this explanation cleared up जो भी confused था अभी तक, ठीक है? Can I see who all understood what I'm saying? प्रेजेंटर मोड कौन रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है यार? यस या नो लिखो ना, समझ में आ रहा है ना? अंडरस्टूड, फाइनल, ठीक है ठीक है, तो उसको भी गिट पे डाल दो. So does Git have unlimited storage? No. Git does not have unlimited storage. In fact, it uses disk space, so it's like constrained by your disk space. And the largest Git repo in terms of file size is the Linux kernel. It's a couple hundred megabytes, and the source code is larger than a couple hundred megabytes. What I mean by what Git uses is the, how do I mention this? Okay, whenever you create a Git repo, there's a folder called .git. That is where all the Git related metadata or bookkeeping goes in there. So when you change a file, actually Git does not track the file state at every point. It tracks the changes at every point. So remember how I showed earlier a equals to b plus 10, और सेकंड स्टेज पे हम लोग किए a equals to b plus 100. So Git will only store कि इस स्टेज से एक जीरो ऐड हुआ है एंड पे और इस स्टेज पे आए हैं. So it is a very compressed snapshot of only the change. So it's usually very small and very, very efficient. So no worries, Git will be able to scale. Google is able to scale with Git. Okay? If Google and Linux kernel can, you have no issues. So essentially, if you think about it, Git has unlimited storage, but if you look at it from a physical standpoint, it does not. Yeah, great question, by the way. Soumya ji, great question. Okay, कोई भी है अभी तक जो confused है, please chat में लिखो. I'm more than willing to repeat myself. In the meantime, I'll stop sharing. Okay. Let me share this thing. Repeat, please. What do you want me to repeat? Snigdha, what would you like me to repeat? Okay, I see no response. Okay. I'll go on with the explanation. You can follow up with your answer, and I'll get to that. So now we know what is Git, what is GitHub. अब Git का भी एक variation है, which is okay. You missed the last 5. Oh, no worries. We'll have a session recording, and you can just refer to that. ठीक है? I basically just explained कि एक simple way to visualize Git, like what it does. It's fine if you missed the last 5 minutes. The main thing is already covered. No worries. And there's a recording if you need it. Okay, so yeah, we just discussed what is Git. Mercurial is just an extension of Git, like not extension, but a variant of it. So it's the difference between Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel, right? They both do the same thing, slightly different UI. Same thing goes for GitHub, GitLab, SourceArt. They are three variations of the same thing. GitHub is the most popular one. You can think of GitHub like the Instagram of a developer, or whatever dating profile of a developer you can think of, but your date is the recruiter. Okay. Okay, let's continue on with the presentation. We will have a hands-on, by the way, after this. So okay, yeah, abhi aa gaya hands-on ka time. All right, let me share my entire screen. Okay. So तुम लोग के लिए मैंने Git saves our progress steps on a local machine or a remote. So as I said, एक cloud पे store होता है, GitHub store करता है cloud पे, Git locally store करता है. Git is meant for local usage. Although it can communicate with a remote server, it is meant for local usage. GitHub helps you push your progress onto the cloud. GitHub hosts your code for you. ठीक है? Yeah. So now we'll be having, अरे भाई सर मत बुलाओ, मैं तुम्हारे एज का हूँ. Yeah, so now we'll be explaining how to use GitHub, right? अब तक मैंने भाषण दिया, अब दिखाएंगे कैसे यूज करते हैं. So I'll be showing, or rather showcasing, a small little demo project that I had like prepared for this event. So let's just see what it does, and you'll get to see the power of open source through this as well. So there's this repo. I can share the link in chat. Hello, hello. Is my audio all right? Guys, is my audio right? Cool, cool, cool. Uh, yeah, the person who was having audio issues, I think it's your internet. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I've created this repo for the event. Uh, by the way, guys, I'm very sleep deprived, so my apologies if I'm stuttering or anything. Um, so, okay, I've already cloned it. Yeah. So this repo contains a project that I created for this event, and I'll just quickly showcase what it does. So it's something called container system. So let's say you have a malware or something you want to test. You don't want to run it on your main machine. You would want something like a virtual machine, right? But thing with virtual machines is that they are very slow. So what a container does is that it just leases some of your physical resources to a particular environment that is isolated from your system. It is a virtual machine, but not a virtual machine at the same time. So there's this very popular tool called Docker. You might have also heard of Kubernetes. So I just rewrote Docker just for like small demonstration purposes. What command line app are you using? I'm not using anything right now. It's just my basic terminal. Yeah. So I rewrote Docker for demonstration purposes, and yeah. So let's. So I have cloned the other. I just demonstrated once for the people who are confused. So कहा था you can follow along later. पहले देख लो. So remember how I said there's this remote server GitHub का जहाँ पे कोड hosted है और हमको हमारे मशीन पे लाना है, right? So right now मैं GitHub पे देख सकता हूँ कि मेरा सारा कोड अपलोड हो चुका है. I can even click on one of the files, read it, but it's not on my local machine, right? I need it on my local machine. So for that, I'll do git clone, and then I'll provide the URL. You can do this through the GitHub desktop app. It's much simpler through that. I would suggest you do that. You need to log in with your GitHub account. So I'll clone the repo, and it'll tell me cloning into Hacktober DevBox. So we'll give this a second maybe. I don't know what's going on. I think internet का issue हो रहा है. एक second. Okay, clone हो चुका. Oh नहीं clone नहीं हुआ है. One second, I think I'm having some internet related issues. I promise this didn't happen before the demonstration. There's a terminal code by you. Looks so aesthetic. No, it's not code by me. I have configured it, but it's not made by me. Okay, I'll just download the source code. Cloning nahi kaam kar raha hai for some reason. So you can just download zip, by the way, in case things don't work for you. Where did this go? Okay. So let's. Okay. Yeah. I'll build the project real quick. It should be done in no time, and I'll demonstrate what it does. Okay. So, कौन इधर Ubuntu use किया है? Let me check chat. In which address it clones the repo. I'll demonstrate that later. अभी मेरा internet नहीं काम कर रहा है ठीक ठाक. Okay, Snigdha has used. A lot of people have used. थोड़ा बहुत. ठीक है. So you guys know that it's something different from Windows, right? It's a totally different operating system. It's open source in nature. You can read the source code any day if you want. You can contribute to it. You can write drivers for it. So Ubuntu is just one implementation of Linux. Think of it like a Ferrari car. ठीक है, Ferrari cars बहुत सारे हैं, and each one is different. Each one has a different like horsepower, different type, different kind, meant for different use cases, different speed ranges. Similarly, Linux has different variants. Just how Windows का 10, 11, 7 सारे versions है. Similarly, Linux का अलग-अलग versions है. There's a very lightweight one called Alpine जो 256 megabytes of RAM के अंदर काम कर सकते हैं. So I'll be demonstrating that now. So DevBox is this tool which you spin up containers on the fly and provide them network access and do things. So for reference, I'll show you right now. I'm on Ubuntu. When I type neofetch, Ubuntu ka logo aata hai. Okay, you can clearly see that, and I'm not faking my demo. Okay, so I'll do sudo devbox run. So I'll just provide some basic arguments. So rm says ki once the container ka काम is खत्म, उसको delete कर दो, remove कर दो. Network says कि मुझे networking चाहिए. Um, and I'll tell it that I want Alpine latest, and then I hit enter. That's my password, and then it tells me, okay, there's a bug, fix me, right? So remember how I said whenever you see a bug in the user interface, try to search for the string or related keywords in it. तो अभी मुझे दिख रहा है bug 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 fix me. तो पहला काम जो मैं करूंगा is I'll try to like pinpoint the source of my errors. So what I'll do is I'll remove the run command entirely. I'll just run devbox by itself. ठीक है, कोई एरर नहीं आया, सिर्फ एक हेल्प मैसेज आया. ठीक है. There are completions, help and run. Okay, let me try completion. Okay, no error again, it's just a help text. Now let me try run. Okay, run tells me I need at least 2 arguments. Let me give 2 arguments. Okay. Okay, so as soon as I give 2 arguments to run specifically, it tells me bug, 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 fix me. So now I know that it's a problem with the run function. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll open my editor. Let me close this maybe. Yeah. So I'll open the code in my editor, and now I know कि run function में error है. ठीक है. See how there was a black box. I don't know how devbox works. ठीक है. I saw the particular inputs I gave. I gave it run. I gave it 2 distribution names. One is Alpine, one is latest. And then I saw that the bug is present. So I visualized the input and I visualized the output and the constraints that took me to reproduce the bug. Now that I know the constraints, I will search for it. So I'll do a search of the term run. बहुत सारी चीजें आएंगे, but that's fine. We want to look for relevant functions and pieces of code. So we look from the beginning. ये सब तो like redundant चीजें हैं. New run command, blah blah blah. These don't look important. But then I see there's a file called run.go and there's a function called func run action. This is probably what's causing the bug, right? Because I am calling a run function and this is a run action. So let's look at it. Yeah. So now we have arrived at the run function. Okay. So initially things look good. We are logging stuff. We are creating a client. We are closing a client. It's fine if we don't understand these. That's all right for now. We keep scrolling down. We try to see are there any possible sources of error, and none as of now. And there we go. We have a line that says print bug 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 fix me. Now in this case, it is a very simple bug that I put in there so that you guys can notice, and you can probably search for the bug string itself. But I try to show my intuition. Okay, when we see something out on the terminal, how to not immediately be scared and try to pinpoint the source of the error. So now that I know the source of the error, I search for possible keywords that can match this like issue at hand, and then I found the bug source. Now I can remove these. I can recompile my application, and let's try to rerun it. It works. किसी को समझ में आया मैं क्या किया? How I like tried to reduce where the error lies. Like, are you guys able to follow along? I get that this is a very simple, but you need to build up on this more complex issues at hand. Okay? Did anyone get it? Okay. There's 1 yes. There's 2 yes. Cool. Repeat please how you find the bug and fix to. देखो, मैंने देखा कि मेरा एप्लीकेशन को जब मैं रन बोल रहा हूँ और 2 पर्टिकुलर कमांड्स दे रहा हूँ, तभी वो मेरे को बोल रहा है कि बग आ रहा है. So to भैया आप Vim यूज करें. हाँ, it's Vim. Yeah, it's a little overwhelming and that's fine. ठीक है. As I said, ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. ठीक है. Not entirely. Okay, I'll repeat it. Seems like some people are confused. I'll repeat it. Hold on. I'll just reintroduce the bug for your is. So let's go to run go. कहाँ था? Somewhere here, right? So I'll again explain from the starting. My apologies if I'm going a little fast. See, I initially have an application. Okay, I'm just exploring it. So I run it just by itself, no arguments to it. And I see कि सब कुछ ठीक ठाक है. It gives me a little help message, tells me how to use itself. I don't see any errors here. Does anyone see any errors here? I don't think so. Okay. अब इसका देखो अवेलेबल कमांड्स में we have completion, help and run. So help is the default command that we are viewing right now. We don't see any errors. Okay, so let's try completion to ensure that okay, we are finding the true source of the error. Okay, completion also works fine. I don't see any errors here. This is just a help message. Okay. So now I try to run the run command. Okay, it tells me it needs two arguments and it received 0. So let's give it two arguments, alpine and latest. Let's hit enter. And then it tells me bug. So now I know where to look for my error. I need to look for a function that accepts two arguments, specifically two strings, and it happens to error out. Okay? And what is the adjective or the clause that we are using that's causing the error? It's run, right? So there probably might be a function with the term run in it. So let's do a search. I'll open my editor. You can open VS Code, whatever you prefer, and just search for the term run. See, I am typing run here, and I'm looking for possible matches of that string in my code base. So let's look from the top, right? All of these look useless to me because I don't see any functions here. And then I see this function that accepts a string argument. Okay, it's okay if you don't understand the code. Just try to understand the intuition. मैं पहले run को दो arguments दे रहा था, दो string arguments, and this function is also accepting an array of string arguments. So this might be what I'm looking for. And it also has the term in its name. And the error was originating from a particular command that was named run. So it's intuitive for me to think that, okay, the bug may be here. So I look into it. Uh, let's go into the file. And there was run action. Okay. See, I arrived at the function and things look great as of now. So I start scrolling down. I try to see, okay, what lines can possibly be erroneous. You can also use your debugger if you use that. I don't really prefer them, but you can try. And while scrolling down and maybe analyzing the code, I eventually see, okay, there's a line that says bug, and then it's erroring out. So I can remove the error-inducing lines, recompile, and then run it again, and it works this time. Okay. Does that make sense? Is that slow enough? Am I still going fast? If I'm going very fast, please tell me. I'm more than happy to slow down. Okay. Yeah. Simran got it this time. Sakshi, did you get it? इस बार overwhelming लगा क्या? Makes sense. Yeah. So your goal is कि तुमको पहले observe करना है bug कहाँ से आ रहा है. Once you observe the source of the bug, your next goal is how can I eliminate other possible side effects. Okay, maybe you are calling many functions at once. Maybe it's some of the other functions that are causing the issues. So you want to distill and isolate the parameters that are causing the issues. Now, once you have isolated all parameters and found the exact core set of variables that is causing the error, then you search for candidates that match it closely. Once you have searched for candidates that match it closely, then you just analyze those like candidates, see if there's any bug in them, and then go on. This is not foolproof. It will not work all the time. Some developers give horrible names to their functions. I just follow best practices. Sometimes you'll find horrible, terrible names, and that is normal. In those cases, you will need to use more advanced reverse engineering tactics, which I will not be going into now. But if you are participating in Hacktoberfest, which I'll explain later on, most of the repos will be very easy to contribute to using this method. That is why I'm sort of demonstrating it now. Okay. Okay, everyone is on board. So hold on, let me turn on my AC. Yeah. So remember how I showed I was using Ubuntu earlier? Now I'll show you that this application actually works. So I'll add the same application, which is NeoFetch. It gives you like diagnostic information about your system. My internet has just decided to not work today. But yeah, you can download stuff. You can use the container as a normal machine. So I can do ls, I can do cd. And how many guys know that this command is dangerous? किसको पता है कि ये command dangerous है? Let me see, maybe yeses or something in the chat. Does anyone know what this does and why it's dangerous? Okay. Okay, do you know System 32? System 32, this mysterious thing? System 32 पता है सबको? Yes or no? हाँ, System 32 most लोगों को पता है ना? So just how System 32, like, okay, System 32 it basically contains your entire system. If you delete that folder on Windows, your machine will not work. So the equivalent of that in Linux is this small command rmrf/. So if you run this, your entire system is messed up. So I'll run this, okay, it messes up my container. But look, since it's a container and like sandboxed, as I mentioned earlier, my main machine is totally fine. Okay, I can run ls now. But if I try, like do that on my container again, and then I try to run ls, it will tell me ls not found because ls ही delete हो गया. ठीक है, the thing which list file, you must have used that in C lab. ls खुद ही delete हो गया, like you deleted everything on your system. But my main system is fine. So this proves that the app properly containerizes stuff, secures things. So you can test viruses in it. Even if a virus attempts to delete your whole system, you will be safe. And that is my guarantee. Okay? So this is I think, a nice project you can contribute to extend its feature set because there are a lot of things that you can improve here. So I've added to-do comments. So if I search for the word to-do, see there are a lot of to-do things that you can complete. I've left some hints here if you want to maybe pick up on it later on. So yeah, that was a small demonstration on how to backtrack things. How you bring back now. What did I bring back? I didn't bring back anything. Anyway, so that's a small demonstration on how like you can build applications, try to fix things in it, and again ask questions. That's the best way to do things. All right. So, uh, is there anyone here who hasn't made a GitHub account yet or hasn't installed Git yet? I have sent many reminders, but if you still have not, now is your time to do it. Okay. Can I see how many people installed it? Okay. Mostly installed. Cool. Yeah, my internet has just decided to not work today. This is kind of disappointing because back the hands-on later on. Okay. So what is supposed to happen is when I run this command, it should like show a bunch of output and then clone the code to my machine. But I don't know internet का क्या हालत चल रहा है अभी. I might have to rejoin. Can you guys maybe give me a minute because I don't want to miss out on the GitHub explanation. Okay. Is everyone fine with that? Can I maybe take just 2 minutes? Cool. I'll stay on the second machine and I'll just restart my machine 1 second. Just like unpredictable software, I don't know what happened to Git, but it like freaked out for a bit and now things are all right. So I'll share my screen again and I'll show you the cloning process, which I couldn't show earlier. So I can type git clone and then I can provide the address to the repository
Just
that I
a
want to clone.
second. Just a second,
Yeah.
Akash. There is no prerequisites or something as such. Whichever domain you wanna try, like if you guys are in first year, have some basic knowledge about that thing. Come up. We are here to make you guys understand and learn. We're all learners, so there's nothing to panic or something. You guys can come up. We guys can show you whatever. Like we are also having upcoming events, like on 27th we're having our Android event, and then on 3rd November we're having our Flutter event, so you guys can also join them, and the first years and the second years can get a lot of information. So
Pragati,
all
1 second. For those who don't know, Pragati is an upcoming SWE intern at Google. So
And
जिसको referrals लेना है, जिसको referral मांगना है, ठीक है, GDG join करो and just ask, email her, ठीक है, I'll give you a Google email and it's pragati@google.com. So
shut up.
disturb her as much as you can, ठीक है. In fact, if you want referrals, just call her. I'll give you her number. उसको disturb करो जितना कर सकते हो, ठीक है, guys. Like be my friends in that term.
And Akash just went to Google California, the headquarters. So you guys can
Right, right.
understand. So
बस
where
बस
he is.
हो गया रोस्ट. She's employed. I am a part-time contractual worker. She's employed by them. ठीक है, there's a difference. Don't let
It,
her fool you guys.
no, no, no.
रेफरल लेना,
I
उससे भर के रेफरल लेना, ठीक है. All right.
Okay. Back to the session. Akash, please continue.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay. So, how do we clone repos from that particular central database I mentioned? You do git clone, and then you give a URL to the particular repository, and you can find that URL. I'll show you where. So, if you click on this green button that says code in the link that I shared earlier, udhar jaake, you can choose HTTPS in your case, and you can just copy this link. So, there's this copy button. Okay? Or in my case, I'll use SSH because I've set that up. But in your case, you will want to use HTTPS or the GitHub desktop app. The desktop app is easier for you guys, so I would suggest that. And you can hit enter, and okay, thank God, I thought it messed up again. So as you can see, it cloned the repo, and you can see in the logs cloning into so and so. Remote se pull kar hai, remote server, and then it's receiving the objects from the server and resolving the patches that I mentioned, the deltas. So the delta is a change between each thing. So for the person who asked, like where Git stores its information, there's this folder called .git that I'm about to open. This is where Git stores all of its information. So what is the configuration of the repo? What is the description? And like every single change you make to the repository is stored in this folder. So now you found the bug, right? Where was it? Let's just reproduce the bug once more. Yeah. क्या था again? Sudo container d. Yeah, let's see if the bug still exists. It should exist. So it was run network alpine latest. Okay. Yeah, there's bug fix me. So let's try to fix that, right? We know that it's in run action, so it's in the run.go file in the run action function. Then we find the line that has the error, and we just delete it. Okay. So what have we done till now? हमने remote से मतलब GitHub से पूरा code को clone किया. So we have a personal copy now. ठीक है? We have made a change. All right. Now we want to propose that change upstream or push that change back to my company. So for that, I will need to stage my changes. So what is staging? ये समझ रहे थे थोड़ा सा. Let's say you introduced 5 features at once. Would you want all 5 into one commit? So what is a commit? Let's explain that as well. सोचो मैं तुमको साइंस पढ़ा रहा हूँ, ठीक है, मैं कैलकुलस का 5 डिफरेंट रूल्स, नॉट कैलकुलस सॉरी, मैथमेटिक्स का 5 डिफरेंट चैप्टर एक साथ पढ़ा दिया. दैट विल बी वेरी कंफ्यूजिंग फॉर यू. वी वांट each concept to be divided into its own chapters, right? So you want each feature to be divided into each commit. A commit is just a particular push that you're doing to a server. So a commit is one unit of change to the full code base. So let's say you made 5 features at once. We only want to push one of those features or one of those files of those features. So that is where we use git add. So so we can check with git status which files have changed. So we just edited run.go और उधर लिखा भी है modified command devbox run.go. ठीक है. We want to only stage the changes in these files. In this case सिर्फ एक ही change है. In other cases there may be thousands of changes, hundreds of changes, and maybe you only want to push a certain subset for one commit. ठीक है. So in this case I have only one change and I want to add it to my commit. So I'll do git add and then you can do the file name. Okay. Then you hit enter. That's it. Now if I run git status again, now the red modified earlier जो पहले red था वो green हो चुका है. इसका मतलब है कि इस फाइल में जो भी changes है are now included in the commit. So when I push it to GitHub, it will show. So now let's write a commit message. So it's sort of like a history log. ठीक है, अगर तुम कुछ change कर रहे हो, एक feature introduce कर रहे हो, you should explain what the code is doing, because maybe you are writing the code now, but I don't know, 10 years later, someone else will be editing it. ठीक है? Just how when you contribute to an open source like organization, the code has been written over thousands, not thousands, sorry, ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया. Hundreds of days maybe in most repos. Hundreds of days, multiple years. Right, we want to know what a particular piece of code does. So it's like a comment that helps you identify what a commit is doing. So for that, I'll type git commit dash s. Then we hit enter. Don't worry, I'll share all these commands with you personally. If anyone needs it, just text me on Instagram. And then I'll give this a message. So fixed bug in run action. So I'll give it a like fairly informative message. And then once I have explained it, and this line comes automatically, don't worry. So once I've explained ki how am I fixing the bug, I just save the file. I'll give my password. That's it. We now have one commit of our own in the repo. How do we check that? So just type git log और तुमको दिखेगा कि अभी at October 15, I don't know, 8:24 p.m. there was a fixed bug in run action. ठीक है? And you can see that came right after the previous commit that I made in the afternoon. So this is at what? 5:19. ठीक है? ये समझ में आया? Like we made a couple changes. We staged those changes. We added those changes to our commit, and then we created the commit itself with a proper message that explains our change. ठीक है? Is everyone on board? Is anyone confused by any chance? Can I see yeses जो जिसको समझ में आया है? And a no for जिसको समझ में नहीं आया. Please don't be afraid to ask questions, as I said earlier. Ask questions. I'm here to help. Anyone else? Okay. ठीक है. So now we have all the changes committed to our machine. अभी हमको उसको Zomato को भेजना है, ठीक है, for review and stuff. It's similar like we add comments and code. Yes, it's similar like you add comments and code, but instead of that, you are adding comments to what you have changed in the commit itself as well. So when we check the history, because we check history more than comments actually. So when we check the history, we know what actually happened. So yeah, now we can do git push. So ये क्या करेगा कि हमारे local machine में हमने सारे changes कर लिए, commit बना लिए, सब कुछ हो गया. अब इसको GitHub पे भेज देंगे. Enter. It'll take a couple seconds. Done. Now, if you guys all go back to this link, मैं फिर से share कर देता हूँ. And if you refresh the page, ये देखो इधर दिखाएगा fixed bug in run action. दिख रहा है सबको? Okay, cool. And here's the best part. See, इधर देखो एक clock का icon रहेगा और लिखा रहेगा 3 commits. If you click on that, that will give you the entire history of the repo since day 1. पहला दिन पे क्या कोड लिखा गया था और आज क्या कोड लिखा गया, सब कुछ है. You can change between the versions at any time. So let's say I want to go to the code which was there on day 1. There's this little button called browse repository at this point. If I click that, I reach day 1 पे जा सकता. ठीक है? All right. And similarly, याद है in this commit we fixed our bug, right? इधर fixed bug in run action. We just pushed this 2 minutes ago. So उसके पहले जो state था, we click on that. So again, we'll click on browse repository at this point. Let's go to the file we changed. So we changed run.go. Search for bug. Sorry. ये देखो. This is the buggy line that was there earlier. So we just went back in time to a previous version to check what was going on there. So this is the power of Git. You can go to any point in time in the repository, previous or in future. It doesn't matter. Past or future doesn't matter. Okay? So this helps you track things really well. And here's another superpower. If you click on any of the commit messages, so I'll just go back to normal size. If you click on any of the commit messages, it will tell you exactly which lines changed. So we removed these 3 lines. Na? So the red mein minus 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 aa gaya. That's it. That's how Git works. Now you can, this is a small crash course on how to attempt things, how to approach things, how to think about open source, and what Git and GitHub is, and a very basic walkthrough. Now your job is to go and find a proper Git course that is a couple, 1 or 2 hours long. I'll find a video where I learned it. Please ignore my recommendations. जो भी आएगा mostly cats आएगा. हाँ एक तो cat आ गया. Good course. Let me see if I can find the one I learned from. Uh, um, good tutorial, good course. Actually, documentation is the best way, but I believe it was this video I learned from. I don't use YouTube videos anymore, but this is like one of those rare occasions where I've used. So this video can help you. Look at any Git course. It's really easy. Most of them are really good. This I believe this is the one I used, so you can follow this for your guidance. And I hope you now have an idea of what open source is, how it works, how it can help you, how to contribute to it, and what's up. Similarly, there's a event going on right now throughout October called Hacktober Fest, where you can contribute to open source repos and like collect points and win rewards and stuff. So yeah, it's your call. You can take part in it. It's a really good way to meet engineers, connect with people. So now, do you learn only from documentation? Interesting question. So, what are you talking about learning? So, is it a library, a programming language, a tool? Really depends. If it's a tool, I learn from the man page, which is शायद C lab में सीखा होगा तुमने. I learn from man pages. I search through my way. Libraries. I read the source code. That's the best way. Uh, you should develop the skill to read other people's code. It is hard, but it is way more beneficial to you. And I'll tell you why. Being in a corporate setting earlier, documentation is usually very shitty. There's a totally different team for documentation. There's a totally different team for coding. ठीक है. So जो लोग कोड लिख रहे हैं वो लोग documentation sometimes, not in all places, नहीं लिख रहे. At least that was true for my company. So what happens is documentation can get outdated, but code is never outdated. The code can never lie to you, right? The compiler will never lie to you. So that's why the code is always way more reliable than documentation. That's why I just read code. And for programming languages, it's all just patterns. Yeah, just C, you can write any language. Like genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I've only learned one language, but you throw any language at me, I can probably work with it. Learning new frameworks. I don't work with frameworks. I'm a low-level engineer. There's not really frameworks in my field. We'll make a group for us where we can ask technical and coding related problems and discuss within ourselves. Sure. Let me see what I can do. Pragati, can you make a? I don't want to open my WhatsApp on stream. Can you make a like WhatsApp group and maybe share the link in the chat? My LinkedIn. Actually, I'm not a very huge LinkedIn fan. I hate the culture behind LinkedIn, but प्रगति ने मेरे को push किया recently बनाने के लिए, so I have one now. Uh, there you go. Hi Om. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's about it from me, and I think I discussed everything I had to. Let me just check my session notes to be sure. But if you have any questions now, just drop them in the chat, and I'll be going through them like sequentially. Oh, by the way, the video that you guys saw earlier, it is completely built with open source software using a library called Manim. It is completely displayed on open source software. VLC is completely open source, and so is MPV, which I was using earlier. And the terminal I use is open source. Everything in this meeting, apart from this platform where I'm streaming on, is open source. This is the power of open source. You are surrounded by it every day, and without it, your life wouldn't be the same. I'll just say that. Every compiler you use uses this thing called LLVM in the backend. LLVM is open source. Had LLVM not existed, Apple would not be as big as it is right now. So yeah. Thank you, Apurv. What to do where our PR gets accepted? Till now, 3 is pending. Oh, okay. So you mean how to write quality PRs, right? Hold on, I'll just check if I'm like done with everything. Demonstration के बाद और कुछ discuss करना था. Hacktoberfest वो तो बोल दिया join the open source. हाँ ठीक है पढ़ लो. No, that's not my Instagram. He's lying. How to write good PRs, right? How to get them accepted. Communicate with the maintainers before you make a PR. So open a issue on GitHub, asking them if they are interested in having that problem solved. So ask them if that's within their goals. Usually, what people do is they just write a PR and send it upstream because it's something they are interested in. but it's not something that the maintainers might want to write, because आज तुम आके कुछ हजार लाइन कोड लिख के चले जाओगे, but not necessarily will the maintainers want to maintain it, right? Because you won't be there, and those thousand lines becomes technical debt for the people who will be maintaining it later on. So we usually do not want to accept features that are not in our motivation or view of the project goals. So communicate with the maintainers. That's the best way to get your PRs accepted. um, my Insta, I'll share that. Can you name the software you were talking about? Which software? I spoke about a lot of them. Which terminal you use? It's Lacrity. It's a custom version. All of my configuration is open source. You can check my GitHub. Couldn't join the session. Will we be getting any recordings? Yes, there will be a recording. So no worries. Um, we can expect GDG's recruitment for second years. We recruit from all years, apart from fourth year, obviously. So no worries. Yeah, we are pretty open to that. I'm in first semester. Any advice I should not do? Um, First year enjoy करो, ठीक है? First semester, second semester enjoy करो. I'll say that. But at the same time, don't lose view of what is important. Second year से DSA बहुत rigorously start कर दो. I get that it's a very arbitrary way to gauge your skills, and even I am very bad at lead code. Pragati here is a master at it, but करना पड़ेगा. It's just part of the grind. You know, just how JE is the only way to get into a good college in India. Similarly, lead code is the only way to get into a good FANG company. So करना पड़ेगा. Just start that from like third semester and you'll be good to go. We need another session from you and Pragati be related to guidance and opportunities. I think Pragati will be better at that. I don't really have a lot of experience. And talk about Discord communities. How can we reach out people there? It's not like LinkedIn, so how can we reach out to people better than us? Demonstrate competence. Okay. Before I was really into open source, I used to reach out to a lot of engineers and I would get ghosted. Demonstrate competence. Show interest in what they have interest in. And by that I don't mean stalk them. Find common ground and show that you are the person to do the job. Okay, find a particular issue that you find on the GitHub track and discuss it. Give your opinions, give strong opinions, because people in the tech space love to debate. The stronger your opinion is, the stronger they'll fight back, the stronger they'll want to speak to you. How to find good projects on GitHub that want open source contributions. So I believe for Hacktoberfest, you can just go to their website and see the participation like requirements and eligibility. But I believe they add a tag called hashtag Hacktoberfest to the repo, and you can search by the tag and find them. Can I start DSA with C or should opt for C++? Okay, you can definitely do DSA in any language. DSA is just a mathematical tool. Okay. It's like, can I implement addition in any language? Yes, obviously you can. So I would suggest go for C++. If you have the time, you'll get the fastest solutions with those because the language is very fast. Don't go for C because the data structures are not built in for you. Will 8.5 CGPA be enough? I know a guy who has 8 CGPA and he's printing fucking, I'm sorry, pardon my language. He's printing 5 lakhs per month from a Swiss company. So, and he did this off campus, by the way. He's last year's pass out batch. He recently had his convocation. CGPA does not matter. I'll say it out front. Unless you're going for a higher education, like myself, in that case, CGPA matters. But apart from that, CGPA does not matter. It's not. Keep it respectable about, like, don't drop to 6 or 7. 8.5 is okay. Go to 8.7, 9, but it's not that important. Don't fret over it. At least that's what I feel. Maybe Pragati can say otherwise. She's a 9 pointer. What are the languages I can start after C? Don't think about what you can start after C. Think about how you can get even better at C. Okay? C is the mother of all languages. Get the best at it. Know everything about it inside out. Because once you know C, you know how a computer works. And then you can learn any language. Okay? It's all just a pattern matching game. Is it okay if I try to do DS in JavaScript? It is absolutely okay. I would not suggest it. Do not do that. I saw a video of quant development on your YouTube recommendations. Would you like to guide about it? I have no clue what quant is. I've just read the word a couple times. I believe it's some. high frequency trading and finance related roles, but I'm sorry, I don't have experience on. What should I do to get recruited in GDG? Like focus on web or app or focus on which language? Okay, don't focus on things with the goal of getting into GDG. Focus on things with the goal of getting into Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft. Aim higher. This is just a club. This is just a society. Okay, don't pay that much importance to it. Aim for your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan. Look beyond the horizon, right? And then if you're ready for those companies, you'll usually be ready for us as well. Currently plan to learn GUI in C++ using Qt, so seeing the docs is enough. If you're confident in your C++ skills, like if you're good with STLs, macros, um, then you'll be fine. Yeah, docs are usually plenty. Docs and look at examples. What I do more than docs is I see what other people have. Let's say if I'm learning Qt, I see what other people have written in Qt. I look at similar projects. I look at the source code. The source code is the best way to get your answers. What resources from YouTube or whatever would you suggest for GSOC 25? So for GSOC 25, communicate with the maintainers early on, send them emails, speak to them on their Discord communities, Reddit, GitHub issue trackers, whatever. We want to help people. We want good motivated students. If you can come to us with your own proposal, like, oh, I want to solve this. I see this deficiency in the project. This is my goal. This is my 6-month, 8-month goal to fix this. We are more than happy to take you in, because not only are you bringing your own problem inside, you're also bringing a plan, right? The thing is, we might not always have mentors to support that proposal, but we will usually try our best. So my only goal is communicate well, communicate very clearly, keep it short, sweet, simple. Don't drag it out too much. Communicate with your maintainer and mentors properly, and that's the best way to get selected. Like I selected people who were like people from top tier colleges applied. Like in my IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, Triple IIT, ISC. I didn't select those people because usually what happens is that they get the experience and roles because of the college they're in. When you speak to them, you'll find out they know very shallow and surface level things. So what you want to do is show your excellence and skills by speaking to me well. If you can do that, I have more of a reason to select you. Okay, a question for Pragati. What should I do to get recruited? I just answered that a couple minutes back, I think. What things like pages, apps, websites must follow to not get missed out? Um, I don't know, yeah. I myself, I'm a college student. I can't really suggest that. Uh, I'm just very active on GitHub and Twitter. That's it. For second year, is it good to focus on DSA only or doing devs? Okay, for second years, do DSA and skill development at once. As a recruiter, they not only want DSA, they also want to see that you can fill the role, right? If you don't have any skills related to the role, why should they pick you? So build both. Be smart about it. Um, Focus more on DSA in the initial stages because that takes more time, and skill development is easier than lead code. So put more time to lead code and a little less time to development. And once you're comfortable with lead code, you think like, oh, I can easily handle a medium or hard. Then go ahead and do like skill development. It'll be easier that way. Okay, I guess that's about it for the questions. If anyone has anything else, you can reach out to me personally. I'll share my Instagram if you want to text me. Um, okay, it's this 72. You can reach me there if you have any questions. Thank you for joining. I hope everyone enjoyed the session. Glad to hear that. Leave from this. Yeah, feel free to leave. The event is over. Thank you, guys. Oh, feels so nice to read these. Glad I could help.
Great work, Akash.
Are tricky voices.
But
All right, guys. See you later. Thank you for joining. I got a DM from someone.
Yeah, you will get a
What?
lot right now. Pro people.
Sure, sure. All right, let's maybe end the meeting. I'll stop
Yeah,
the
you
recording.